Good afternoon, Good Shepherd. It's Wednesday, June 22nd, 2022. A couple of things this afternoon, some announcements, and then some thoughts and answers to some questions. First, the announcements this coming Sunday, Zoom service at 7:45, in-person service at 9 o'clock. You're welcome to come to either or both. Join us on Zoom at 7:45 and come to the Eucharist at 9 is fine. The Zoom service, of course, is morning prayer. I'll say a few things more about that in a moment. And then at 10:15-ish, we'll have a video of a presentation by Mallory McDuff, who's a faculty person at Warren Wilson College in North Carolina and an Episcopalian, a presentation on green burial, another option for what we do with our physical remains after we die. It's fascinating, gives all sorts of options, and we'll look at that, and then we'll have some discussion following that. So that'll be 10:15-ish after the morning service, and it will be Zoomed. So if you can't either stay, if you come in person, or if you can't view it remotely, we'll have a link for that later on, so you'll be able to take a look. And you're always welcome to go ahead and get the book that she wrote, Our Last Best Act. Very, very good book. So that's that announcement. Second announcement, a week from Saturday, so that would be July 2nd. We will gather, those who are able to get up and do this walk, we'll gather at 7 o'clock in the morning at the Safeway out in Rampart Range. So you go to Littleton and turn left, like you're going to go to Chatfield, except that you just keep going and you get out into this little community called Rampart Range. And it's on our way out to Roxborough State Park. So we'll meet in the southwest corner of the Safeway parking lot there at Rampart Range, and the address for that will be in the e-news, so that we can carpool into the park for our next Altars in the World. We're carpooling for two reasons. One is that parking lot gets really crowded, and the fewer cars we take in, the better. And also we should be able to get into cars with people who have park permits, state park permits, so that no one has to pay to enter into Roxborough. Parishioner Jim Ives will join us. He is a docent, a volunteer out at Roxborough, and will be able to talk to us about the geology. It's an amazing place if you haven't been there, about the geology and some of the other natural history out there. It should be a lovely time. Again, we're gathering at 7 to get into the parking lot, but also to minimize the effect of the heat of the day as we draw closer to the middle of summer. So those are the two primary announcements. Now, a few words about worship. The first one is that I've started getting some complaints about noise in the sanctuary before worship begins. Good Shepherd is a pretty social parish, and people see each other when they walk into the sanctuary and need to go up to greet them. They'll still be there after the service, and you can talk to them in coffee hour. Or if you want to talk, please stay out in the narthex area, so that folks who want to go in and pray and center themselves, listen to the prelude, to get ready for worship, are able to do so in a prayerful manner. I'm going to asking the ushers and the greeters to make sure that the doors going in are closed and opened if people need to go in after the choir is finished rehearsing. But we want to enhance the experience, or enable folks to enter into worship quietly, without a lot of yakety-yakketing going on. Again, there are plenty of other times and places for that on a Sunday morning, and it's wonderful to hear the buzz and hear people reconnecting, but we need to be mindful of the worship atmosphere. The second thing is, I was asked a couple of questions, and I love answering questions, and since we aren't publishing the sheepskin right now with that puzzle the pastor side, I thought, well, I'll take advantage of few minutes here in this week midweek moment to answer these questions. Both of them have to do with the fact that we've changed the beginning of the 9 o'clock service from being the normal liturgy of the word as it's lined out in the Eucharistic service to pick up and use in its place the service of morning prayer. And as I've said over and over again, that's totally legitimate according to the prayer book. So we're not doing anything unusual, but it has pointed out a couple of things that people aren't quite accustomed to. And before I talk about those, I just want to remind folks, if they didn't know, that our prayer book, the Book of Common Prayer, that is the centerpiece of our worship, was developed in the 16th century, reflecting both a monastic tradition of worship by monks and nuns in their daily prayers, plus that Eucharistic piece. And those were separate, even in the monasteries, those were separate services. And they had their own characteristics in terms of the order of things, the way they were done, and the way that prayers were offered, and all those kinds of things. So when our prayer book was put together, we have references to both of those, or examples of both of those, that Eucharistic service and the monastic services. The monastic services are morning and evening prayer and compline and noonday prayer. And in monastic services, there are two things that we see more frequently than we see in the Eucharistic service. The first one is the use of what's known in Latin as the Gloria Patri. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit. One of the questions I was asked is, why are we saying that after the Psalm and after the Canticles? That's because that's the way they did it in the monastic settings in Europe, and particularly in Britain. During those services, at the end of a psalm or at the end of a canticle, which is a scriptural song, and we use some of those, at the end of a psalm or the end of the canticle, it would conclude with Gloria Patri, or glory to the Father. The only exceptions to that in the morning prayer services are in some of the canticles. They have that sort of Trinitarian ascription as part of the canticle itself. And so we don't use the Gloria there. But in these other two circumstances, at the end of the psalm for morning prayer and at the end of canticles that don't already have that built in, we add that glory be to the Father and to the Son and to the Holy Spirit. That's not part of the Eucharistic practice, which is why we don't say the Gloria at the end of the psalm in the Eucharistic service. So the answer is primarily history. That's why. The other question I was asked is, what's this VR stuff that we say in this series of prayers? They're called the Suffrages, but the series of prayers before the collect of the day. And those are called, like I said, they're called the Suffrages, and they are also a product of that monastic tradition. And the Suffrages are just a set of short little call and response prayers. And that's what we're doing. And the prayers are divided into what are known as the versicle, which is the part that is said by usually the officiant, but it may be sung by a cantor, or it may be sung by a choir, and then the congregation responds. So there's the versicle and then the response, and that pattern. So it's call and response. And it's a short series of these short sentence-like things that lead up to and culminate in the collect of the day. So that's what those are. And that VR is versicle and response, versicle and response, versicle and response. We do that in the Eucharistic service, but it's not set out in quite the same way. When the celebrant will say, Christ our Passover is sacrificed for us, the response, that's the versicle. It comes from 1 Corinthians. The response is, therefore, let us keep the feast. So we do that. We just don't call them versicle and response. So we use them in the Eucharistic service, not to the extent that they show up in the service of morning prayer. And we have two different ones, Suffrages A and Suffrages B, and we're using both of them. And I know that you've noticed that they're different from week to week. We're going back and forth between the two. So I hope that clears up some of those questions that you may have had. If you have other questions about the service, especially as we try We use morning prayer as the precursor to the Eucharistic service, or those of you who are there at 7:45 and are seeing morning prayer and sort of more into how it is different than what we have been doing with the Eucharist, just let me know. I'm happy to let you know what I know, and if I don't know, I love doing the research. So thanks for all of that. That's really it for this afternoon. Enjoy the day, the rest of the week, and I look forward to seeing you this weekend. Blessings, friends.